Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Tuesday, 10th June 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. China and the US have agreed in principle to resume trade truce talks, establishing a framework to resolve trade disputes following a prior agreement in Geneva. Discussions in London centered on key tech and industrial exports, aiming to de-escalate the trade war, with both sides citing consensus for allowing rare earth and tech trade, pending approval from Trump and EU approval from Trump and I. Companies in China are increasingly adopting artificial intelligence, which is impacting the jobs market. In corporate finance, Insta360, an action camera maker, saw its shares surge 285% in its Shanghai trading debut, raising 1.9 billion yuan, US $264.50 million, in the city's largest IPO in 17 months. Foshan Haitian Flavoring and Food Company, a major condiment producer, aims to raise up to HK $9.56 billion, gives US $20 billion. In Hong Kong, while Eve Energy, the fifth largest e-battery producer, also plans to raise capital on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Tencent Music Entertainment Group is acquiring Himalaya for about $2.40 billion in cash and stock. Chinese solar photovoltaic PV manufacturers are grappling with price wars and losses due to excess capacity and declining demand. Ping An Bank is using PopMart Lavabo dolls as incentives to attract young customers to open new accounts. Film distributors in China have pledged to increase imports to diversify the market. China's No. 5 Eve battery maker, Eve Energy, is jumping on the Hong Kong EPO bandwagon. China is also supporting and financing Iran's malign behavior. Turning to the United States, alongside the agreement with China to resume trade talks, White House AI czar David Sachs downplayed the risk of AI chip smuggling to bad actors. He expressed concern that overly strict regulation of US AI could hinder growth and allow China to dominate the market. Across the Asia-Pacific region, a new report indicates that companies, particularly in China, are becoming more cautious about selling on credit, leading to a rise in long payment delays. Regarding Iran, China is supporting and financing its malign behavior. In the realm of artificial intelligence, companies in China are increasingly adopting AI, impacting the jobs market. White House AI czar David Sachs downplayed the risk of AI chip smuggling. Microsoft-backed AI Lab Mistral is launching its first reasoning model, challenging OpenAI and China's DeepSeek. Russia is grappling with severe economic repercussions stemming from its involvement in the Ukraine conflict, with its budget deficit ballooning fivefold in the first 5 months of 2024, hitting 1.5% of its GDP. February saw an 18% year-on-year decline in oil and gas budget revenue, signaling a slowdown in the Russian economy. Energy giant Gazprom reported a substantial $13.10 billion in 2024. Political dissent is also being suppressed as a Russian politician faces criminal charges for denouncing the war in Ukraine. Furthermore, an inquiry suggests potential ties between the Telegram messaging service and Russia's FSB Thaw. The conflict continues to claim lives, with a recent Russian drone attack in Odessa resulting in 1 fatality and damage to a maternity hospital. Meanwhile, the European Union is intensifying its response to the war in Ukraine, with increasingly stringent sanctions against Russia. The EU's 18th package of sanctions takes aim at Russia's energy sector, financial institutions, and oil industry, featuring a $45 per barrel price cap on Russian oil. The EU intends to further reduce this price cap, to diminish the Kremlin's earnings and impede its war efforts. These sanctions also encompass measures impacting the Nord Stream pipeline. The EU is also formulating contingency plans, including capital controls and tariffs on Russia, in the event that Hungary obstructs the implementation of these sanctions. In Ukraine, President Zelensky is urging Western nations to halve the existing Russian oil price cap in response to escalating attacks. Shifting to the United States, US intelligence agencies have issued a grave warning regarding an unprecedented threat of nuclear annihilation. The United States and China have reached an agreement on a framework to alleviate trade tensions, causing ripple effects in global markets and increased investor scrutiny. In Hong Kong, stocks rose following the trade truce revival, while demand for gold increased due to trade deal uncertainties. The U.S. is also contemplating a revenge tax under Section 899, potentially imposing additional taxes on individuals and businesses investing in the U.S. if their home countries unfairly tax Americans. Chinese exports to Southeast Asia, specifically Vietnam, Thailand, and Indonesia, have risen due to high US tariffs. Furthermore, US trade officials are considering further rollbacks of port fee rules, which could ease restrictions on liquefied natural gas, LNG, tank. A US business group is urging Washington to treat Taiwan as a trade partner, while Taiwan life insurers are reportedly facing challenges with their $700 billion investment in the U.S. General Motors, GM, is planning a $4 billion maintenance factories within the next 2 years. Turning to Australia, shares have surged, reaching a record close as bank stocks showed strong performance. This positive movement in the ASX 200 was also influenced by the resumption of US-China trade talks. Australia's securities regulator, the Australian Securities and Investments Commission, ASIC, is suing a fund manager for allegedly improper investor screening and has secured guilty pleas in a stock manipulation case. ASIC is also trialing a faster IPO process amidst decade-low listings. Solis Minerals is seeking to delist from the TSXV and re-domicile in Australia. Saudi Arabia's economy is showing strong signs of growth, with a 3.4% GDP increase in the first quarter, driven by a 3.1% rise in manufacturing and mining. Saudi bank credit has surged to $834 billion due to increased corporate borrowing, while total bank assets reached $1.40 trillion in April 25. The hospitality market is projected to exceed $109.60 billion by 2033, with a 9.5% CAGR, and the gaming market is expected to reach $2.19 by 2033, with an 8.9% CAGR. The hand tools market is also projected to reach $342.45 million by 2033, growing at a 3.69% CAGR. Market consolidation is anticipated in the insurance sector, while the country's oil firm faces challenges from a crude price slump and low production levels, potentially affecting a $5 billion loan to Nigeria. Internationally, Arkham Capital is boosting its investment banking efforts, spurred by increased deal activity in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Significant deals were signed at the Munich Logistics Expo with Saudi entities by companies like Maersk, Panattoni, and JD Property. Wipro has established its headquarters in Riyadh. In the energy sector, Saudi Arabia has lowered its July oil prices for Asia to a nearly 4-year low following an OPEC supply increase. Mohammed bin Salman is seen as the new face of Saudi Arabia. India's capital markets regulator, SEBI, has been working with venture capital funds to accelerate the transition to the Alternative Investment Fund (IF) regime, leading to an extension of liquidation deadlines. The Indian stock market's record growth under the Modi government has fueled investor interest. However, equity mutual fund inflows have decreased to a 13-month low in May despite overall market gains. Bond yields are also decreasing after a 3-session sell-off. Rapido's entry into the food delivery market is poised to challenge the dominance of Swiggy and Zomato. Raymond Realty, an Indian real estate company, is set to list in early July. The government is planning to implement air conditioning temperature standards for electricity conservation. Araya Life Spaces, a small cap stock, has seen a 5,800% increase in 5 years following an update on its Indian subsidiary. Swiss firms are seeking to increase their presence in India as a free trade agreement. FTA gets closer to being implemented. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal has invited Swiss companies to contribute to India's goal of becoming a USD 30 trillion economy by 2047 and has proposed a Swiss enclave in India to strengthen economic ties. In defense, Reliance and Dial have signed a yacht 10,000 crore agreement to produce Volcano precision ammunition in India. Trade talks with the U.S. are being expedited ahead of President Trump's reciprocal tariffs deadline. Turning to China, Avic Chengdu Aircraft, the maker of J-10 fighter jets, has seen an 18% drop in its share price in the past month, reportedly due to reduced tensions between India and Pakistan. Meanwhile, Switzerland is seeing increased interest from its firms to expand operations in India as a free trade agreement, FDA, nears completion. Piyush Goyal has invited Swiss companies to invest in India's USD 30 trillion economy initiative by 2047 and has proposed creating a Swiss enclave in India to enhance economic relations. In the United States, trade negotiations with India are being expedited in anticipation of President Trump's reciprocal tariffs deadline. South Korea is seeing President Yoon Suk-yeol aiming to boost the stock market. The ruling party is pushing legislation to allow stablecoins, potentially transforming the crypto space with a new crypto bill and digital asset law for won-based stablecoins, a move advocated by Min Bong-duk. Simultaneously, there are growing calls to tighten regulations on Chinese-led property investments. OpenAI is expanding its presence by opening a South Korean office, its second-largest market for paying customers. Chia Kwon is scheduled to visit to discuss AI partnership. UiPath has introduced an agentic automation platform to enhance productivity. Coupang VP Caleb Hill is stressing the importance of diverse data in driving e-commerce expansion. South Korean stocks have experienced volatility, erasing earlier gains, while the National Pension Service has halted dollar sales after the won's recovery. Egg prices have surged due to supply problems stemming from U.S. export. Choi Un-seok suggests expanding K territory to stimulate retail growth. President Yoon has extended an invitation to Chinese leader Xi Jinping to attend the APEC meeting. Cuba has established an embassy in South Korea, marking the formal start of diplomatic relations. Tourism Malaysia has launched Visit Malaysia Year 2026 in South Korea, showcasing attractions at SITF 2025. United Kingdom. The UK is bolstering its energy independence and technological advancement. A substantial £14.20 billion, $19 billion investment is earmarked for a new nuclear power plant aimed at reducing reliance on volatile international fossil fuel markets. In the realm of technology, Uber has partnered with AI company Wave to initiate a pilot program for fully autonomous rides in the UK, marking a significant milestone for the ride-hailing giant. TikTok is further solidifying its UK presence by creating 500 new jobs, bringing its total workforce to 3,000 and inaugurating a new London office. The UK's financial landscape is set to evolve with the introduction of a new stock market dedicated to trading shares in private companies, facilitated by the Financial Conduct Authority's FCA. Approval of the PISI's share trading scheme. Ukraine, Hernekriete. Ukraine continues to receive vital financial and military aid as it navigates the complexities of ongoing conflict. The EU is channeling $3 billion to Ukraine as the first tranche of loans backed by frozen Russian assets, offering crucial economic support. A prisoner of war exchange between Kiev and Moscow provided a moment of humanitarian relief amidst the hostilities. Furthermore, the US and Ukraine have solidified their cooperation through a minerals agreement, strengthening economic ties. However, the future of US assistance remains uncertain, as Trump is reportedly weighing a complete cessation of military aid to Ukraine, a move that could significantly alter the dynamics of international support. Taiwan's economy is booming, fueled by record-breaking semiconductor exports. The stock market is surging amid US-China trade talk optimism. TMC's American depository receipts are now 9th globally in market capitalization. To safeguard its financial sector, Taiwan will implement restrictions on hostile takeovers. Tensions remain high as Taiwan detected 43 Chinese aircraft and 6 naval vessels operating nearby. Taiwan is partnering with Malaysia on high-tech and sustainable development projects. The country will be the guest of honor at Seoul's 2025 event, highlighting its cultural sensibility. Tata Electronics is sending hundreds of employees to Taiwan for specialized semiconductor training. Japan is grappling with a widening gender disparity, as highlighted in a recent government study. Concurrently, major Wall Street firms are vying for the attention of Japan's promising young professionals. The Nikkei stock average in Japan has climbed for the 4th straight session, buoyed by advancements in trade relations between the US and China. Furthermore, Toyota and Daimler have announced a merger of their Japanese truck divisions, slated for completion by April 2026. On the diplomatic front, Japan and the United States are considering a meeting between Shigeru Ishiba and Donald Trump in Canada, perhaps during the upcoming 7 summit. China is witnessing escalating price wars among its automobile manufacturers. These competitive pressures are drawing increased attention and criticism from authorities in Beijing, fueled by worries about ongoing deflationary trends. California sought a court injunction to block the Trump administration's plan to deploy 4,000 National Guard troops and 700 Marines to Los Angeles, even though Governor Gavin Newsom opposed the move. The Pentagon estimated the 60-day deployment's cost at $134 million. Shifting focus to Finland, the nation intends to allocate $691 worth of military equipment to Ukraine, using funds derived from frozen Russian assets. This contribution underscores Finland's continued support for Ukraine in the face of ongoing conflict. European markets experienced a downturn amid US-China trade uncertainties. The decline in European stocks, partly due to UBS's performance, added to the negative sentiment. Counterbalancing this, the European defense sector is in a supercycle, potentially offsetting deficit worries. Nigeria is facing challenges in its attempt to secure a $5 from Saudi Aramco. The slump in crude oil prices is the primary cause of the delay. This price drop has reduced Nigeria's export capacity. The loan was intended to boost the nation's struggling economy. Switzerland has launched the Ghana Cooperation Program, committing $77 million to the initiative. Concurrently, Switzerland is actively reinforcing its economic partnerships with both India and Sweden. Piyush Goyal's visit to Switzerland and Sweden aims to foster progress in the India-EFTA negotiations. In the wake of UBS's acquisition of Credit Suisse, Switzerland is setting a substantial $26 billion capital requirement for UBS. Canada's economy is experiencing suspended animation, according to CBC's chief, influenced by persistent trade war tensions. An invitation has been extended by Canada to Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for the next 7 summits. Furthermore, Starbucks will introduce Green Dot Assist, a Microsoft Azure OpenAI-powered assistant, in Canadian and US stores starting in fiscal year 2026, aiming to enhance operational efficiency. The World Bank's revised global economic growth forecast now stands at 230%, a consequence of persistent trade tensions. Amidst this economic recalibration, Double-Line Skandlak advocates for investment in international equities. He anticipates a decline in the dollar's strength. Gundlach also noted that geopolitical factors are deterring foreign investment in the United States. South Africa's currency, the rand, has remained strong despite disappointing figures from the manufacturing sector. In other economic news from South Africa, Telkom South Africa announced a 62.3% increase in earnings. This financial success led to the recommencement of dividend payments. The positive announcement caused Telkom's share price to jump by 7%. Serbia is currently seeing controversy surrounding a planned Trump-branded hotel complex in Belgrade, backed by Jared Kushner. The project aims to develop a bombed-out building, a site laden with symbolic weight due to its history in the 1999 conflict. This venture has already triggered resignations and a criminal charge, signaling significant local opposition and legal scrutiny. Global markets are responding to optimism surrounding US-China trade talks, particularly in Asia, where Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index has risen by 0.8%, though oil prices are slightly down. Cuba has formalized its international presence by establishing diplomatic relations with South Korea and opening an embassy in Seoul. The European Union continues its support for Ukraine, circumventing Hungary's objections to a $22 billion aid package and committing $867 billion to bolster defense capabilities, a package that Hungary has explicitly refused to join. In other European economic news, the European Commission and the European Central Bank have approved Bulgaria's plan to adopt the euro. Meanwhile, France's CAC 40 has increased by 18% over the past 25 years. Germany is actively working to diversify its natural gas sources. The country is increasing its imports of land, including supplies from the United States, to lessen its dependence on Russian gas. To further strengthen its energy security, Germany's CIF has also entered into a 10-year agreement to purchase gas from Azerbaijan. Pakistan is increasing its defense budget by 20%, following a recent deadly conflict with India, even while implementing reductions in overall government spending. In the Middle East, Israel's Finance Minister Smotrich has rescinded a waiver that previously facilitated cooperation between Israeli and Palestinian banks. Adding to regional tensions, a Brazilian activist is returning home after the Israeli Navy intercepted a humanitarian flotilla near Gaza. Turning to Southeast Asia, the Indonesian government has suspended operations at 4 nickel mining sites in a popular tourist diving area. In Malaysia, tourism. Malaysia is actively promoting Visit Malaysia Year 2026, WHAM 2026, at the SIT 2025 in South Korea, showcasing the country's diverse cultural attractions. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has assessed that Syria's post-war economic recovery will necessitate substantial international assistance. The Philippines is set to see Century Entertainment enter its gaming market through a joint venture with a PACO licensed systems and content provider. Amidst discussions about Singapore's evolving economic role, Hong Kong is being positioned as a potential East Asia crypto-friendly capital. In Lebanon, peacekeepers have reported an attack on their troops by individuals in the southern part of the country. Brazil's annual inflation rate has shown a decrease for the first time since January. Zimbabwe is moving closer to commencing commercial gas production. And that's a wrap for today's news. because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.